Hi everyone, I'm John C. Morley, the host of the JMOR Tech Talk Show and Inspirations for Your Life. Well, hey guys, and happy New Year to everybody. If this is your first time joining me on the JMOR Tech Talk Show, welcome. And firstly, happy New Year to everyone, as today is January 2nd, 2026, if you're watching us live. And we're really happy because we're now celebrating being on the air 4 years in a row. That means that today marks the start of our 5th year to be on the air, marking the beginning, but celebrating our 4th year on the air is pretty big of an accomplishment. So, guys, if it is your first time here, I want to say thank you and welcome for joining me. If you're coming back, I definitely want to say thank you. And of course, welcome back. It's always great to have you back, especially those that enjoy our content. And this is the JMOR Tech Talk Show. This is the show where I talk about technology, things that you need to know, things that can protect you, and some cool insights that you may have questions about. So if you guys have not heard about BelieveMeAchieve.com, why not check that out after the show? You can get my short form content, so much more. So check that out. Oh, don't forget the reels as well. All right, guys. So the way the show works is we put reels together that start on basically Monday, and they roll through to Sunday. And that's what the show is about. It takes those reels and kind of dissects them into something a lot bigger than just, the highlights that I give you. Yes, if you're thirsty, feel free to go grab yourself a drink or a snack or beverage or what have you. But without any further ado, guys, you know what I want to do? I want to go ahead and kick off this first show of 2026. A big thank you to all of our partners that have been keeping us on the air. We thank BronxNet. We thank Oakland TV. We thank PRX and so many others for choosing to carry our content. We really do appreciate that. As we know, we're helping build minds and help people become better versions of themselves. So without any further ado, guys, I'm going to kick the show off, all right? All right, everyone. So welcome. Yes, guys, welcome to another of the ever-popular episodes of the JMOR Tech Talk Show with your host, who else? Myself, John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur, engineer, marketing specialist, video producer, podcast host, coach, graduate student, and yes, a lifelong passionate learner. Tonight's episode is going to talk a little about TikTok, drones, robotaxis, the Alexa Plus. It was a one wild week in tech as we closed up the year. And this will be your guided tour through a week where governments rewrote rules, big tech pushed boundaries, and everyday life quietly became a little more trackable, more automated, and more complicated. From China and TikTok, trading diplomatic jabs with the U.S. to drone bans, driverless cars, hacked insurers, and AI assistants that want, of course, your full-time concierge. This is the week that shows how fast the future is crashing into the present. Are you guys ready? So sit back, buckle up, enjoy that beverage or snack, and let's decode the headlines that will continue to shape, our world, including 2026 and beyond. As you drive, shop, and learn, and protect your privacy in 2026, it's important to understand these insights, even if you're not technical. So, ladies and gentlemen, the first one I'm going to talk about is China demands a lawful, balanced, non-discriminatory TikTok handover. So this is kind of interesting because, for a while, TikTok was on the fence about allowing us to do anything. That's right. So China says it wants the TikTok U.S. handover to follow its law and fairly balance everyone's interests while nudging Washington to offer Chinese firms a non-discriminatory business environment. And the thing is, it's going to be interesting because, they were not going to give TikTok any more time. I mean, I don't know if Donald Trump would have decided to extend the reins. He might have. Who knows? But it couldn't just keep going on like that forever, right? That's not obviously a good thing. And there's going to be a lot of changes with TikTok. We don't know about all these changes just yet, but we know there's going to be changes, and these changes are going to affect and impact many people in the world. And so I want to tell you guys that TikTok is going to change how it works. The structure, it's not clear whether the algorithm is going to change, but what is clear is that the United States is going to be managing it, even though TikTok is going to have a small portion owned by the Chinese, which I don't think is very good, but I guess that's part of the deal. All right, guys. And number 2, Italy orders Meta to keep WhatsApp open to rival AI chatbots. What's this all about? Well, I think a lot of these companies are getting pressure, to obviously to stay open. I think that's a huge thing that we're seeing. So WhatsApp, they call it the WhatsApp AI power play. And yes, it was blocked by Italy's antitrust watchdog and ordered Meta to halt. That's right, halt the WhatsApp and the terms that will shut out the rival AI chatbots, accusing it of abusing its dominance and risking less innovation choice for users. I think that's a very, very important thing for everyone to say. And so I want you to understand that this is an important thing, guys. It's an important statement about what Italy is doing. And it's funny how the European countries are just basically trying to get our attention. But I think it's got to be about the United States world too, right? It's got to be about the U.S. taking some responsibility, taking a stand about what they're doing. But we know that Europe always seems to kick in a lot earlier than the United States watchdogs kick in. Does that mean the U.S. isn't watching? No, I don't think that. I think the U.S. is just very slow to react and slow to respond. I think it's always going to be like that. But I do think the United States does pay particular attention to these incidents with other countries. And, what Italy is doing right now with Facebook, I think it's an interesting thing. I think it's going to say, hey, you know what? Even if you can get through the United States, well, if you guys do this and you're in other countries, especially in Italy, we're going to nab you. And I think that's the message, that we're being a watchdog. And I think that's a pretty cool thing if you ask me. Number 3, guys, Bad Blood. Author sues big AI firms for training on his books. So this is a very interesting one. So the New York Times star reporter takes on the big AI, quote unquote, Bad Blood author and New York Times reporter John Carreyrou is suing Google, XAI, OpenAI, Meta, Anthropic, and Perplexity, accusing them of pirating his books to train their chatbots without permission. So, the question is, a lot of these engines, they're starting to want to grab data in real time, but at what cost and at what privacy, right? So we're going to see more of these legal battles coming up as we enter 2026 and beyond, because these AI engines, they are, let's say, hungry for information. And without information, it's like these bots become useless. And so, when you're using them, even if you tell them, I don't want you to use my personal information, guess what? They still use it. So here's my advice for you. If you're trying to use these quote unquote bots, okay, these AI engines, and, you need to get help, like advice, nothing wrong with that. but I'd be very careful about what you share with the bots. Don't give it very personal information. Don't give it your address. Don't give it true financial figures. Don't give it anything that would identify you back. Because who really knows if this data is going to wind up somewhere that you wouldn't want it to be? And I think that's a very, very important thing. And Zoox recalls 332 robotaxis for drifting over the center line. There were some problems with Robotaxi before, wasn't there? So Amazon Zoox is recalling, as I said, 332 self-driving robotaxis after a software error made in cars basically drift over the yellow line and stopping in front of oncoming traffic. They claim that it was fixed with an update, but a big warning sign for robo-rides is still on the rise. I think the problem I see with these robo-taxis or autonomous vehicles, whatever you want to call them, I think it comes down to the fact that it's about money, right? It's about dollars and it's about cents. And so if something can get to the market very quick and it can make money, even if it has some potential of being a security risk, a potential, let's say, safety issue, they're going to kind of, I don't know, sweep it under the rug. Why? Because they can, and because they want to get the money. They're claiming that it's not as bad as it is. But I don't know about you, but if you're on the road and a car comes over the yellow line, I consider that pretty serious, right? We all know what it's like when DWI drivers are around, right? And they can't even stay on their side of the road, let alone cleaving to the line. They're like completely on the other side of the road. It's like they're driving in Europe, right? So that's the thing. Another thing, the problem with them is that they also seem to be moving and they seem to be going very close to mailboxes and things like that. So I attribute the same kind of behavior to robo-taxis. Not that they're drunk, but that they could make the same mistakes a drunk driver could make. Their perceptions could be impaired, all because of sensors, because of the weather conditions, and just because of misinformation about, where a point starts and where a point ends. So we're definitely going to keep you abreast about what's going on with that, but I don't think that concern is going to end anytime soon. Did this update really fix anything? I don't know. They claim it did, but we're really going to have to see. See, they're hoping that when they put the update in, is that it's going to make a major change and that people are going to feel comfortable about doing what it is they do. I think that's the very big thing that a lot of people don't quite understand. That's really the key, guys. That is definitely the key. Let's move on to our next point. Number 5. Tiny 90s virus, Málaga, helps inspire virus total and Google's Málaga Cyber Hub. So what the heck is this all about? Like, it's been quiet with malware for a while, hasn't it? But don't be too comfortable, because when we don't hear about it, that usually means some more developments are happening under the hood. How one time a mostly harmless 1990s malware called Virus Málaga sparked, student Bernardo Quinto's obsession with security and led him to find Virus Total and eventually helped bring Google's European cybersecurity hub to the Spanish city. So I think a lot of things that we see in our world, whether it's security, whether it's enhancements, I think they come from other things that have been in the past. And these things in the past usually rear their heads again, but they get shifted. They get pivoted just a little bit. And when they do, you know what happens? Their entire approach changes. So I think we've always got to be careful about, what's out in our world and what's going on. I think that's a very, very important thing to understand. So we'll definitely keep wraps on that. Number 6, guys, Mills smart food waste bins head to every Whole Foods by 2027. John, what is this about? Well, it sounds like it's about saving the environment up front. But if I had to not know better, I would probably say they're doing this to make money. It's always about money. So how Mill turned kitchen scraps into a Whole Foods and Amazon power play. So food waste startup Mill parlayed its smart home bins, AI shrink cutting tech, and fan based inside Whole Foods into a nationwide deal to put its commercial bins in every store starting 2027. Now, remember, I didn't say 2026, I said 2027. But you have to realize that no one's going to do all this without making any money. So you and I both know that for them, it's not about the environment, even though we think it's about the environment. It's about that power play that's going to get them more control and guess what, guys? Get them to make more money. Now, I don't have a problem with them trying to make more money. Where I have the issue is people trying to push their way to make more money when it's actually not going to help our environment. It's actually going to harm our environment. Even if it didn't help our environment, I wouldn't be too upset. But the fact that it's actually having potential to harm our environment or give people misnomers about what really should be about recycling, it's making me do a double take about this. And is this really the right direction? I don't know. Let me know, guys. I'm curious. Number 7, guys. The Federal Communications Commission ban blocks new foreign-made drones during the new DJI models from the United States market. So this is a very interesting turn of what's happening. It's actually called Trump's drone ban, and it grounds new DJI models. The Trump administration's FCC has banned all new foreign-made drones in the United States, citing national security risks and dealing a major blow to Chinese giant DJI while promising to unleash American drone dominance. So all new DJI drones, not the old ones. So that's a very good question, guys. Can I, of course, can I still use my old DJI drone in the U.S.? And yes, you can still use old DJI drone in the U.S. because the recent FCC decision bans the import and sale of new models, not the use of drones already owned, sold, or previously authorized. Your existing drone remains legal to fly, register with the FAA, and use with no remote grounding or recalls. But the new ones are a problem. So why are the new DJI drones a problem? Does anybody know why they're a real problem? So due to the U.S. national security concerns with lawmakers and agencies fearing potential data exfiltration, unauthorized surveillance built into them, supply chain vulnerabilities to the Chinese government, leading to recent bans on the new models, despite DJI's claim of security and lack of evidence and concern about the impact on U.S. users, especially public safety. Now, this makes me go back to a double take, if you remember. This goes back to when we talk about, the cameras, and there were lots of companies out there like Hikvision, and they're on the state's NDA list. You guys know what that is? I think we talked about, it's called the NDA list. And the U.S. So the NDA list refers to equipment from specific Chinese tech companies banned by the United States National Defense Authorization Act. That's what it is, the National Defense Authorization Act for security risk, primarily affecting Hikvision, Dahua, Hawaii, ZTE, Hyteria, and there are others. And this means U.S. users, especially government and critical infrastructure, must use NDAA compliant cameras from brands like Axis, Bosch, Pelco, Hanwha, or Avigilon that avoid these banned components for secure surveillance. And so, the NDAA, again, it is the National Defense Authorization Act, has banned many of these that I told you about, and it's Section 889 of the NDAA. And so, it's a problem. It's really a problem. But again, they do support brands like Axis Communication, Bosch, Hanwha Vision, Pelco, Avigilon, Verkada, Mobotix, Acti, Digital Watchdog, and Vivotech. You want to make sure that your camera is not on that list. Now, chances are if you're buying your camera in one of these big superstores. Like it could be a BJ's, a Costco. You definitely want to check because there's a high probability that you could be buying a camera that is on the NDAA list. Now, what happens if you use it in your home? Nothing. But it cannot be used in any federal facilities. It can't be used in any place like a school that gets federal funding. So that's kind of the most important thing to understand. But why would you want a camera like this anyway in your possession if it had the potential to, well, spy on you, right? And I don't think a lot of us like understand this from the get-go, but I'm here to tell you that this is a very, very important thing to understand. So let's be mindful of that. Again, the bill that we're talking about is the NDAA, in case you didn't know what it is. The NDAA, and that stands for the National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA. And so you can go online, you can literally pull the list and see, what's on the list, what's not on the list, and make sure you do that before you actually go buy your camera and use it. I don't care whether it's at your home or your business. Some of those cameras, like the Hikvisions, they even have websites out there. Hopefully they've taken them down that'll let you get in and just hack them with just putting in the code of your device, and bam, you can just reset it. I think that's terrible. All right, guys. So Aflac, yes, you all know the duck, right? Aflac breach exposes personal and health data for about 22.6 million people. I don't know about you, but I think that's very, very appalling that they allowed that to happen. So Aflac, insurance giant, is warning that 22.6 million people, which hackers stole names, that's not just names, but social security numbers, ID numbers, addresses, and health data in a massive cyber attack likely tied to an organized crime group. But you see, a lot of these companies, and I'm not just talking about insurance companies, I'm not just talking about banks. I am so disimpressed and so disgusted. I'm not going to mention the bank names because that wouldn't be fair. But I got to tell you, a lot of these banks, they're terrible. The security is bad. I know a couple banks are my clients. And I can tell you that it comes down to one thing for them. You know what it is? It comes down to money. And that's sad. And it's not the big guys that don't want to spend the monies. It's the little guys at the lower level. And they think they're doing better because they can show that they've managed their budget better. But really, they've opened them up to a Pandora's box or a breach. And so the big guys definitely want to spend the money because they don't want to get caught, with any type of breach. But middle management seems to think it's okay if we save some money and we take a risk. I think maybe some of these people in middle management maybe should be reclassified, and some of their roles and access should be revoked, because the fact that they're willing to do this just, I don't know, puts a pit in my stomach. One that I'm not very pleasant to have. So be mindful of that, guys, because I see this getting worse. And like I said to you, it happened with Aflac. It's happened with other big, big businesses. And you hear me talking about banks every couple weeks, right? We just had a story about a bank last week where NEC's ATM, which they found if you upgrade to 3.0, you're okay. They were using an endoscopy camera, and they were going in and they were tricking sensors to be able to have it, they call print money, but really just dispatch money. So I think these are important concerns that a lot of people out there have. I didn't realize that the systems were that easy that people could just get access to them. But people claim that these were service workers. I mean, they were sticking USB drives on them. Maybe when they were working, they were leaving the panels not secure. So this is how they got it. It's not that the drawers were unsecure from the factory. It's that there were people involved with maintenance in the field, and they purposely left these things open so they could later get back to exploit them. I mean, I think that's just terrible. I think we need to do a better job in making sure the people that work on this type of equipment are actually, well, that they are trustworthy and that they're not going to cause a problem. Number 9, guys, Alexa Plus turns into a voice concierge for booking trips, services, and repairs. This is a very interesting caveat, if I may say so. It's one I think that a lot of people don't expect. So the Alexa Plus becomes your AI concierge. Amazon upgrade Alexa Plus, and will soon, as I said, let you book hotels, hail cabs, get home repair quotes, and even schedule salon visits with companies like Angie, Expedia, Square, Yelp, and more, just by talking to it. I think that could be a very big, let's say, problem waiting for Pandora's box to open and causing a lot more exploits. A lot more exploits. So imagine this, guys. Imagine that lamp on your table being able to hear you and do everything. Like I said, book hotels, fix the sink. Well, not really fix the sink. Schedule your haircuts. It's called the Alexa Plus. They call it the Alexa Plus Dream. I call it the Alexa Plus Nightmare, where you're lying between this is helpful and this thing is basically living in my house with me. And I don't know about you, but I think that's kind of creepy because it might be exploiting things that you don't want. I know there were times in the past when people thought that Alexa was actually off when it was still listening. I don't know about you, but our privacy is so important. This is one of the reasons why I won't have an Alexa at home. I don't trust, I'm going to say it, I don't trust Amazon. I was close to buying an AI assistant a few weeks ago, and it started with the letter B. And this company, Amazon, recently bought out this device. And I say, no way am I going to have a device that's linked to Amazon for data, because I just don't trust them. Now, people go to Amazon because they have a big infrastructure, but unfortunately, they don't necessarily run, let's just say, the most above board systems. Now, is that by design? Is that because it's a mistake? There could be lots of reasons, but I just don't trust them, and I refuse to have a service that is managed by Amazon. I'll buy from them once in a while, but I don't even give them my cell phone number. So these are important things that I think we as consumers and business owners need to understand, not just today, not just tomorrow, but as we move into the future, because these are concerns for everybody, right? They're concerns that could, tip the scale. And I know you're saying to me, John, that's crazy. But the big question is, can Amazon be trusted with all our personal data? Can it? With all our personal data. It's complex. They invest heavily in security, encryption, PCI compliance, and monitoring, but that doesn't mean jack. And they offer customer controls, voice recording, deletion, and ad preferences, but they face criticisms for data usage for targeted ads, registry browsing, and issues like missing data and user requests, highlighting a balance between strong security measures and extensive data collection for personalized services, requiring users to manage settings carefully. So, of course, Amazon is going to throw this back onto the developer, the user. But when Amazon is the one that's running, and I still have a problem with it, because third-party APIs could be the problem, and there could be lots of issues, guys. Amazon does use encryption, but so what? Transparency. The company claims transparency is important and invests billions in security and citing extensive internal documentation as proof of vigilance. I don't care. I don't trust them. We've seen what they've done with ads. So Amazon is generally, they say, considered safe for transactions due to its robust security. But trust is a trade-off for the high personalized data-driven experience it offers. And users must actively manage their privacy settings, use strong security, and be aware of the extensive data collection that underpins its services, especially with devices like Alexa and services like Prime. So I think these are important wake-up calls for us to know that even if Amazon claims that they're doing the very best they can, it's still not enough. I'm just being honest. All right. Number 10, guys. Use Bikistan's nationwide license plate camera grid has been found online with no password. What's this all about, John? Well, this gets into a touchy area. So, license plate Panopticon was left wide open. Think of it like this: a pair of shoes that will go everywhere you go. Now, imagine every step being logged by cameras and left online with no password. Would you trade that level of tracking for promises of safer streets? Or is that a hard stop for you? I don't know about you, but that's a hard stop for me. I think sometimes we're trying to protect our world and we're going so far, but then we're leaving the door open. Or how do we do that? We don't change the password. We make the password something simple, something that's not complex, and not to get into that today. We give the password out to people we know. We give it out to strangers. We use the same password on multiple things. These are just some ways. But when we have data in a network and other people have access to that data, there's always going to be vulnerability. So I always say, where we're going to have our problem, the weakest link of our network is where the intersection of data and third party meet non-compliance. And there's lots of companies out there that have non-compliance. I want to tell you that up front. Again, it comes this question about money, security. And although money and security are supposedly close, it plays a game where sometimes money is here and sometimes security is here, but it kind of like is on this teetering scale. Well, I wouldn't want to be there on the day where money is up here and security is down here. So they kind of go through this teetering scale. But I think that's harming the human public for the data they steal, for the implications that they cause. And third-party systems, as much as we want open connectivity, it's a nightmare, guys. And I say this to you because when a third party comes into a system, nobody is doing the things to make sure that third party stays compliant. They're just not. Number 11, guys. Gmail finally lets you change your address while keeping all your data via an alias. So what's this about, John? This is an interesting pivot that Google and Gmail have decided to, have decided to pop. And it's an interesting spot because it's something that could never be done before. Now, suddenly, it's becoming, well, the new norm for them. So, again, it's something people wanted because they wanted more flexibility, right? That's what they wanted. They wanted more flexibility. So Gmail finally lets you ditch that old address. Google's rolling out what they call the long-awaited feature that lets you change your gmail.com address without losing data, keeping your old inbox as an alias. It was first hinted on its Hindi support pages and expanding globally over time. But is this a good move for Google, or is this going to come with more implications and more ramifications? I think over the long term, it might have more problems of security breach. But I'm sure Google will figure that out down the road. I don't think this was a good idea to allow people to change things and port the alias. I think that was a really bad thing. But, Google just does whatever they want. Number 12, guys, New Jersey advances a bell-to-bell K-12 phone lookup policy with the new state grants. This sounds like something interesting, right? And so New Jersey has finally moved to to lock phones out of class. New Jersey just approved a statewide K through 12 bell-to-bell school cell phone ban, headed to the government and Murphy's desk, with nearly 1 million already granted to districts for lockers, pouches, and phone-free classrooms. Now, I was, paying attention to some educators, being an educator, and some interesting things I was hearing about this. So apparently, a student would come to class with a phone. And something, it's not really the student that was the problem. And this is the funny part. It was actually people like the parents calling their student during class hours. Like, don't parents know they shouldn't be calling their student during class hours? And that's where most of the problem was happening. It wasn't that the students were using their phone to call anybody, but there was another side to this. And that was the fact that students were thinking it was okay to text during class. Some people were using their phone to cheat during class. Those were the problems. I know in grad school, where I go to college, I know that when we take a test, your phone may not even be out or face down. It needs to be away and in your bag. And if it's not, guess what you receive? An automatic 0. Pretty straightforward, right? Well, this whole caveat got me to see what other educators are doing. There's one school, and they're doing something very interesting. So they have a set of cubbies in the front of their school. They go in the one door, and then there's like the cubbies, and then before they get in the second door. So they never have to come into the second secure door. They don't have to come into the first secure door. So things like lunches, or if, let's say, parents need to drop off lunches for their kids, they can. But even things like, DoorDash and Grubhub, they can deliver to teachers and stuff like that. Now, here's another thing that I thought was a very, very interesting thing. When I went to school, all of our lockers had locks. At this one particular school, they don't have locks on the lockers. So they built an infrastructure whereby lockers don't have locks. What does that mean? It means administration can easily go into your locker if they have a problem. But they also have people on the floor watching and patrolling, making sure that no one's going into the wrong locker. I'm curious what you guys think about that. I know one guy on the internet who gets a lot of traffic seemed to be sharing that. I wanted to share that with you guys, that it was all about, keeping the locks off the lockers. Although I think that could be a potentially good idea. It also means you've got to deploy staff members to make sure that lockers are not getting abused. I think the one thing it's doing is teaching students that they can't play any games with hiding stuff in their locker that they shouldn't, because if they do, the staff's going to be able to just go right over there and open the locker. Now, are there legal implications to this? I think so. Do they have to sign something that gives them permission? I'm thinking so. But I remember being in school, and I remember, having the lock, and, you'd have the lock that would go in, and they had a little master key in the back that they could basically, unlock anybody's lock. Okay. The thing is this. My locker, you had a top and you had a bottom. And I remember one year, I believe my locker was on the bottom. Another year it was on the top. And so when you opened your locker, there was a little lever in the locker you'd press, and then the other top or bottom would open respectively. And that's usually where I'd keep like my gym bag and things like that. But I don't know if I'm so on board with keeping locks unlocked. If there's a master lock, right, and you can just go in and just unlock anybody's lock, I don't know if I'm really a fan of just keeping things unlocked. What about when school ends, right? There's people walking through the hallways. And I don't know about you, but textbooks are not cheap. And not that the students would steal the textbooks, but maybe other people would. I don't know. So I'm a little concerned about that. But this new bell-to-bell lockout for cell phones is something that is hitting the country. They call it bell-to-bell. That's what it's called. It's called bell-to-bell cell phone ban. And the policy prohibits students' use of personal phones, internet-enabled devices from the first bell to the last, aiming to reduce distractions, improve focus, curb cyberbullying, enhance social skills, with common implications in New York already, and it'll be in New Jersey soon. It's already been in Oklahoma, allowing for teacher-approved educational use with medical IEP accommodations only. Recently, this ban, the way it works is phones must be off and away from the start of school to dismissal, covering classes, lunchtime, and even your passing periods. Usually includes smartwatches, tablets, and earbuds, not just phones. So we're going a lot further than just phones, guys. Teachers can permit phone use for specific educational tasks on that need basis. Exception students with medical needs, IEPs, or 504 plans have approved exceptions and may use them with that restriction in place. They claim it'll reduce distractions, it'll improve engagement, it'll support mental health, it'll ease teacher burden. And so it's interesting to see that this is starting to become, well, more of a reality because everybody's been pushing for it. This has been going on a while in Florida as well. And it is a law in Florida. Okay. Florida Hills High School, with elementary and middle school students from using cell phones during school hours. High schoolers could still use phones outside of class or for educational purposes. That doesn't seem fair. A pilot program it was testing the day ban in 6 districts and assessed its impact, and it looks like they have decided to move forward with it, as that was of last year. So they're hoping that it's going to provide a better learning experience. But we're not doing it for everybody. We're only doing it for the younger kids. So I think that might not be so fair. Number 13, guys, TikTok's first U.S. awards glitch out, but still they go viral for creators. What's this all about, John? I thought you would never ask me. This is a very interesting thing. And so when we think about this and think about what happened, TikTok's first U.S. awards hit the glitch, and it still goes viral. So hours after its U.S. sale deal was confirmed, the TikTok's debut U.S. awards show in Hollywood battled broken screens, but still crowned Paris Hilton Muse of the Year and Keith Lee Creator of the Year. Complete with Labubu, Cannons, and Sierra performance. The question is, how is this going to change when TikTok becomes, well, primarily run by the United States of America? I'm curious, guys. Number 14, guys, the judge pauses the Texas strict app age check law on likely the First Amendment grounds. And this is an interesting caveat. So the judge blocks the Texas age check law. The federal judge has halted the Texas new App Store Accountability Act, ruling that its age verification and parental consent rules likely violate the First Amendment, handing Apple, Google, and other tech firms a major win. So he's halted the new App Store Accountability Act. So, and saying that parental controls, consent rules likely violate the First Amendment. So what that really means is that he's saying that they should be able to still continue. I know that sounds confusing, but he's saying that it's not against the First Amendment and that it should be completely allowed. So, yeah, I know a lot of parents and kids are not happy about that, but how do you police applications? How do you make sure people aren't getting in trouble, right? How do you do that? I think that becomes more complicated. The more apps, the more school bell-to-bell band, it's not about the cell phones I told you. It's about all other devices. So that could be your smartwatch, that could be your earpods, your watch, and everybody wears their watch, right? So does that mean that you can use your regular watch, but you can't use it to interact with your phone? I don't know. They haven't been that specific on how that rule is going to work, but I know that as we move into, well, let's say Q3 and Q4 of 2026, these questions and many others will hopefully get answered. And I think a lot of people try to throw First Amendment up as like, you can't do that, you can't do that. But then when something's harming someone or using technology or exploit someone, where's the pushback, right? Where's that pushback? So as we're now into 2026, and by the way, guys, if I haven't said that to you again, happy, healthy, prosperous, amazing, abundant 2026 New Year to you. I think we need to go back to the point about technology being a tool. It's not good. It's not bad. It's how we choose to use it that makes it so. There are a lot of people I talk to that are against AI, for example. I was talking to somebody just today, and I explained to them that the problem with AI is that it's how it's being taught, how people are getting misconceptions about it, and how people that don't understand it are abusing it and using it in the wrong context. I think what needs to happen in school is a class that teaches AI ethics. You might say, John, what's that about? Well, we don't teach a class that teaches people how to be nice, right? But I think that's probably never going to happen. But I think if we could teach a class about AI ethics, maybe we could combine in that class the fact that we need to do the right thing, even when no one else is watching. Not because we have to, but because we should want to. And you see, that whole caveat is going to make our world a much better place, I should say. 2026 is now here, and there's so many possibilities that are hitting us. AI is definitely moving forward. Other technologies are moving forward, quantum computing and others. But are we deploying these solutions just because we can or because we should? That's an interesting statement, right? If I ask Merriam-Webster, who I'm going to ask right now, I go to Merriam-Webster a lot, Merriam-Webster, and if I ask Merriam-Webster, what does the word should mean? So should is an expression of a condition. It's an auxiliary verb, according to Merriam-Webster. If you change your mind, please let us know. If she should call, tell her I'll call back. Should. So, okay, then what does could mean? Could has a slightly different meaning. Could means something different. Still auxiliary verb. We found we could. We said we would go if we could. Again, this is can be suggesting less force or certainty as a slight form in the present. Could we go? I like to say, may we go? May I do that? It's a little more polite. So just because we should, okay, should to me means that we have the capability to do something. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. Just because I can develop this app that could do all these great things doesn't mean I should. And I think a lot of people in 2026 and beyond are focused on making money. I get that. But I still believe that everyone, regardless of whether you're developing one small program or whether you're developing a huge clustered system, we have a responsibility and accountability to not just the users that are, let's say, invoking our platform or services, but also the world for the greater good of all concerned. And I think that might cause some confusion for people. Why? Because in the past, when somebody knew they could, they would. But it might not be the right thing. Let me try to give you a caveat. Let's say you're at lunch, okay? And you're walking by a table, and nobody's at that table. Maybe they're somewhere else for a moment, and they have French fries on their plate. Just because you could take them doesn't mean you should, right? We know right from wrong, but you get my point, and that seems very clear. But when I put it into context of contextualists, you're like, John, this is getting confusing. It's not getting confusing if we look at it from there's a perspective of how it can help the greater good of another human being or other human beings of our world. I think that's a very important thing to notice. And we've got to be aware of that every single day. So 2026 is going to have a lot more questions. A lot more developments will be made in 2026. A lot more possibilities will become evident. But the most important thing, guys, is just because we can develop something doesn't mean we should develop something. Let's take a for instance. Let's say that I could develop a time portal to go backwards or forward. Just because I could doesn't mean I should. Another potential is maybe people get angry. Just because somebody can get angry doesn't mean they should get angry. Does this make a little more sense? Right? Just because I can send an email at 1 o'clock in the morning doesn't mean I should send it at 1 o'clock in the morning. You probably shouldn't. Is this starting to make a little bit of sense? So could means I have the capabilities of. The should is more talking about, is it the right thing? Is it for the greater good of all concerned? That's what I want you guys to think about. So, guys, I want you to understand all these things. And as we move forward, I'm so grateful to all of you that are following my show, other shows, that are going to believemeachieve.com, that are liking the content, that are sharing, and that are making this part of your day. You know, these episodes released within 24 hours of the show airing at our podcast network as well. And you can always go to believemeachieve.com for more of my amazing, inspiring creations. That's short-form content, long-form content, articles, reels, and so much more. So, guys, for more unique content and resources like I just explained, I would encourage you to visit believemeachieve.com. That is believemeachieve.com. And I'm hoping, guys, that as we start to learn more about what technology can do, I'm hoping that you will start to grow not only appreciation for kindness, but to developing what it means. Just because I could get up at 2 a.m. in the morning and drive to XYZ to get an ice cream cone doesn't mean I should. Just because I could eat 5 pieces of cake doesn't mean I should, right? The should part implies that it's probably not the greater good. Could have negative impacts on me. Even taking those French fries from that person's table could cause implications. Like, what did you do? Oh, there were fries on your table, so you just took them. Why did you do that? It could lead into a fight. It could lead into a lot of stuff. Probably not, but probably you might get yelled at. And I think if we take the concept of having to think before we act, our 2026 will be probably one of the best years that we can see possible. So, gentlemen, I want to leave you with this really important thing, and that is whether we're talking about computers, whether we're talking about weapons, whether we're talking about AI, whether we're talking about different mythologies. Okay. They are not directly good or bad in their own regard. What makes them that way or writes our story is how we choose to apply them. So we have freedom of choice. And we need to master the difference between could and should. Right? We need to master that. And for if we can master could and should, our life will not only change today, but it'll change every day in the future. Our choices will change. Our perceptions will change. And I'm hoping that will get you to realize what I mean by the greater good of all concerned. It means you, and it means everyone else in your environment, in your world, people you see and people you don't see. Just because somebody could use that scope before version 2.0 on an ATM to have it dispatch money doesn't mean they should, right? There's legal consequences for stealing. So that's the point I want you to get. But I think when it's not so black and white, people are like, oh, it doesn't really matter if I do that. I'm trying to get you to see that it really does matter what you do. And if you embrace that, then not only will you become a better person, but you'll start to make different types of decisions. You'll start to be more powerful in a way that's more reserved, but more respected. So again, I say this to you, for the greater good of all concerned. The choices you make should be made not just because you could, but if you should. And think about that, because that's going to set you apart from so many other people in the world that are just looking to do something for money. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. Be sure to check out BelieveMeAchieve.com for more of my amazing, inspiring creations. And ladies and gentlemen, I will catch you real soon. Be well, everyone.